my purpose is to have inner peace. That is it. That's my purpose. If I don't do that, and if I don't navigate life the way that I need to, I won't have that. And just, and having that essential to everything that I do in my life. And especially as I'm getting older and I've just retired, I want to do the things that make me happy.
I wanted to say that during when my mom was away and other hard times in my life, I was in school, and my counselors just had such an impact on me. And as my mom was saying earlier, I think it's really a divine job, and you guys are really saints, and I really respect it.
Hello and welcome back. This is Andrea Park
And Alexa Dimitru.
and this is Alive Again podcast. Is a podcast where attorneys and other professionals meet to discuss real life challenges and the decisions that shaped our journeys. Today, we have with us a great friend, Robin Lieberman. She is very close to my heart because she's a fellow author and also a 40-year middle school counselor, which we all know how important that is. And also, as I said, she's an author and a lyricist. Welcome, Robin. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Alexa, for the opportunity for me to be able to share my story. And Cheryl Benton, our fearless publisher, has beautifully woven her authors into an inspiring community of talent and friendship, which is how we met. And I'm forever grateful for that. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So we mentioned the 40-year school counselor, and because of Alexa, I grew up in Romania and we didn't have that in the school system in Romania, but she was very fortunate to have a school counselor that helped her a lot. So I'm grateful for you for the service that you did to the school system in New York City. And I would like to ask you why you chose that profession.
Well, I had originally started out as a very young girl being interested in creative writing. I had that edge to write poetry and stories, and that sort of flourished even throughout high school. But in my third year of high school, I took an elective course in psychology, which I found to be the most fascinating course I had ever taken. And then it dawned on me that I'm that person, I'm that friend that who people gravitate to when they have bumps in the road, when they have a problem that they need to talk about. I seem to be the person that my friends would come to. And I thought to myself, I could do this. I really believe I can be a wonderful counselor. So when I continued to college, I earned I had a double major, one in journalism and mass communications and also in psychology. And so I did the double major and I moved on to graduate school to earn two master's degrees, one in school counseling and then the other in educational administration. And although I fulfilled a career in counseling, I never stopped writing because it was still always my dream to become a published author. And I continued to write throughout my counseling career. And it just so happened that during my tenure as a counselor back in 2021, Cheryl, the publisher from Three Tomatoes, published my first novel. And that was just a very good segue for me to move from one career to another because I already had that in the works for myself.
So now you mentioned, and we know that you are recently retired after 40 years. And the next question would be, would you have chosen something else? Looking back at your 40-year career, would you have chosen something else? Or was that the career for you?
100%. I am so happy with the career that I had chosen because I became a novelist, which is something that I always wanted to do, and I fulfilled my counseling career. And one of the great things about counseling students, and I did counsel high school level students just for several years, but I would say that most of my years were with middle school students, ages 11 through 14, which is the most difficult age, and they're very impressionable, and they go through a lot of their physical, social, and emotional changes during that time. And it's so rewarding to see the impact that you have on your guidance with them. And so many students have passed through my office throughout the 40 years, hundreds of students. And you never really know how many of those students you've had a real impact on. But if I can just share very quickly one story, this will sum up how great this career was for me. So I was thinking back in I had a boy in my charge. He was an eighth grader. It was his last year in middle school. And at the beginning of the eighth grade, his mother had passed away. He went through a very tough time. He had a couple of older brothers, and he found himself in my office very frequently. And I never pushed him. I let him sit. I let him cry. Sometimes he wanted to stare out the window. Other times he wanted to talk to me. But I was 100% there for him. And he had graduated at the end of the year. And I was a counselor in that same school for 35 years. So I had him as a student very early on in my career in that school. And I was sitting at my computer at school, and it was a Friday before Mother's Day weekend. And I receive an email from him. And in the email is a poem. So this boy's out of college at this point. He's in his 20s, and I had him when he was 11, 12, 13 years old. And he sent a poem, and he prefaced the poem by saying that it has taken him all of these years to be able to acknowledge Mother's Day and thank all of the women in his life who have helped him through the hardest thing that he'd ever had to go through, the death of his mom. And I read the poem, and the women in the poem were all women in his family. They were aunts, his grandma, and at the very end of the poem, he puts my name in as his counselor. I get choked up even thinking about it. And I printed it and I framed it. And I think that that experience is all encompassing with how rewarding it is to do that kind of work. And that's just one student. You think about the hundreds who have passed through in my 40 years. And to receive something like that, it was huge.
That's
That's
beautiful.
probably the best story I can give you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's
You know, to be connected with his family at that point, it was tremendous.
yeah, life-saving in a way. Yeah. And I wonder, what does success mean to you?
That is a very simple question. Success to me is inner peace. It's not about anything financial. It's feeling peaceful and not allowing people to disrupt that for you, for me.
Yeah. You saved so many lives, and as we know, it's so important to this particular age bracket that you were talking about, so important in a person's life. And you were there for so many of them. And I'm curious, do you have any fears?
I don't have any fears professionally. I've accomplished what I've set out to do both in my school counseling career and now with my writing. So I do feel as though I'm completely satisfied where I am in my life. When it comes personally, I still have my parents. My mom is turning 87 in a few days, and my dad just turned 90. And
God bless.
I have a great granddaughter. Thank you. And I have a great granddaughter. So they're great grandparents. The only fear that I can think of is I hope for good health for my loved ones, for my family. And sometimes that fear of losing my parents, and I realize how fortunate I am to still have them and interact with them. When that fear gets in the way, it zaps some of the enjoyment out of really enjoying them if I let that get in the way. And I just have to allow every day to unfold and be grateful. I mean, gratitude is a big word. And I do feel gratitude.
Yeah. And because Alexa is a fashion designer, tell us a little bit about your dad. Because I know that he's a
Oh,
fantastic, one of the best tailors in Long Island, in New York.
thank you. I grew up in a very hardworking family. My father became a tailor at 18 years old. He self-taught, and he went on to work in his father's store. They owned a store on the Lower East Side. And just for years, an expert tailor. Has a good eye. He can take anything apart. He can put anything together. And even at 90 years old, if I give him something, he can do it. Spoiled. Because I just refuse to sew a button. Everything still goes to him. I still bring everything. Everyone in my family does that.
And I think he
And I
enjoys
think he
that so
enjoys
much.
that so much. He really does. And he worked hard. He worked 7 days a week. And I have the utmost respect for him. And you know what? It was some hard times growing up, but I never felt like I didn't have. My family, my parents always made my brother and I feel like we had everything. I never felt like I was lacking anywhere. That's great parenting.
So, talking about your dad, I realized that and we visited my uncle's uncle and aunt yesterday here in Romania, who are in their 70s, and they're working their garden and they're traveling, and we were talking about purpose in life, purpose after retirement, because they have, my cousins are all grown up and they're all over the place. My oldest cousin is in Canada and the other one is in Spain. So neither of us
Hmm.
are none of us are in Romania for that matter. And now talking about your dad, tell us a little bit about your routine after retirement.
Well, first of all, it was really a challenge for me to retire because it was an emotional decision. And I'm not sure if, well, I think it might be the same for most people that when you're in a very engaging and satisfying career for as many years as I've been in, it at one point, I really believe that my role as a counselor in the schools defined me as a person, because I've been doing it for so long, and it's very scary to step out of that role. The fact that my first novel was published during my tenure did make it a little bit easier for retirement. I think a lot of people are concerned with what they're going to do, what their routine will be like. Do they have anything else to step into? And I had that, because the last few years that I was working, not only did I publish Searching for September, but I had very good reviews from my readers who wanted a sequel. It made it very easy to write that sequel following the fall, and that was published just about a year later. So I was well on my way and was already writing into my third book at that point. And it takes a long time. When you're working a full-time job, very little time is left to be creative and to write. But it was an emotional decision. And I'm happy that I did it. And I'll tell you, I am busier now than I was when I went to work every single day. But I am very happy that I stepped into the counseling field, because there are there are so many things in that field that extends to other areas of my life. It's knowing the strategies for coping skills, it's learning how to be resilient, it's knowing how to read a room full of people. I know how to guide others who are in need. I have an inherent sensitivity toward all people. So all of the qualities that come with being a seasoned counselor, it just continues to other areas of my life. And I hope that's making sense. It does make it a lot easier to move ahead into other areas, to have those skills. You can be very smart in a certain area, but if you don't have those skills and you don't have people skills, it really lends itself to other things. But I do have a routine. I mean, aside from enjoying my granddaughter, and I do help out with her twice a week, I'm very committed to my writing. As you know, I write lyrics for musician friends. I have a few songs that are out there, and I very much enjoy doing that. So my time is fulfilled with all of the things that I want to do. I don't feel that I am in somebody else's template. I have to do the things that really make me happy. I've worked hard my entire life, and I want to make
Yeah.
sure that I am fulfilled. So I'm doing a little bit of everything.
Yes. And you just mentioned right before we started that your third book is done.
Very, very happy. I'm very happy. The third book has taken me almost 3 years to complete. It is not a trilogy. It's a completely different storyline, which will have a sequel, because I found myself adding so many twists and turns in this novel that I have enough for a sequel. And I believe my readers will want a sequel when they read this. So I'm very excited to get that over to Cheryl, and hoping that it will be published in the next couple of months. She's waiting for it. I can't wait to get it to her.
Yeah, we can wait to read it
Thank you.
because we know for sure that's gonna be something fantastic
Thank
because
you.
this is who you are. So after a lifetime of work and writing, was it any point in your life that shifted your perspective on life?
I'd have to say it it was a hesitation to retire. That weighed very, very heavily on me. To step out of a role I've had for 40 years, it was extremely difficult for me to make that decision. I could have retired 2 years earlier, and I just didn't. It took a lot for me to do that.
Yeah.
I'd have to say that really is the only thing. But everything that I wanted to do, I feel as though I accomplished that. I am very satisfied in my professional life, in my career. Have I had any failures there? Definitely not. I don't feel like I've failed anywhere in my career where that's concerned. Have I had disappointments in my personal life? I have, but that's always to be expected, and it comes with life experience. And every person is in the trenches with experience. And if you don't go through it and come out the other end, then you just don't learn how to navigate life. That's the way I see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And how did you get to work with the musicians?
Okay. So that is very interesting. I am on an online music platform where musicians from all over the world, all over the states, they play from home. And they're all different music genres. So you can go on, and if you want to listen to country or rock or folk, it's all divided up and they're all scheduled. And so I have a cousin who plays on that platform, and he encouraged me to go on. And so I listened to him. And then I started listening to other musicians. And how it works is that they play and we see them perform, and then there's a chat. So we're able to type in the chat, they're able to read the chat. And I did that for the last, I would say, 3 years. And from being in the chat with other musicians, we all just like I'm involved with a community of authors, I'm involved with a community of musicians. And we all know each other. And there were two musicians who played out of Costa Rica. And I would always talk in my chat about, I have this book coming out, it's my first novel, and they would talk about it on their show. And then I finally sent them signed copies. And I received a call from one of them saying, I like the poem that you have on the back of the book. We'd like to use those as lyrics. I had never thought about that before. And so that poem evolved into lyrics, and they produced the music, they composed it, sang it, had a professional video made, and it's out there. So of course that got around, and then I just became very interested in writing lyrics and seeing if there were other musicians who would like to collaborate with me and work with me in that capacity. And because I'm friendly with so many of them, I was able to collaborate on 5 songs in total, which is very exciting. And, some people who I've never met, but we collaborate on the music. So I had never really thought about that before. But the difference is when I write lyrics, it's much more, it's immediate. When you're writing a novel, you're talking about a 2-year process, a 3-year process. Yeah, I write lyrics. It's easier for me. And I've really learned a lot. I have to say, I've learned a lot from my musician friends. I've learned how to blur the lyrics in a way that they can relate to all people. I've just, and it is, each verse is like telling a story. And then at the very last verse, you kind of save it, and it, it's a little hard to explain, but in a lot of ways it is like writing a story. And I really have learned a lot from them. So I'm doing both, and it just fell into my lap. It's not anything that I had ever thought about before. I have another two songs that are in the queue. Another musician had asked if I can collaborate with her. And so that's where I am. Now that I'm finished with this third book, I will work on the music and then start working into its sequel.
I was just gonna say creative writing and writing lyrics kind of go hand in hand.
It does. It does. And it really is something that I enjoy doing. And listen, I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. There's a lot that we learn from people. It doesn't matter how much experience I might have as a counselor, or how creative I am, or if I think I'm a great writer. There's so much to be learned from other people. But that's opening yourself to the universe. It's opening yourself to being able to listen and hear what other people have to say, and listening to other people's experiences. It's always about learning along the way. None of us know everything.
Yeah,
And people
definitely.
people who feel that they do are really missing out on a lot.
Yeah,
I always see myself on an even playing field with everybody. It doesn't matter what you do, what path you've taken, what you do for a living. There's always some common ground with people. And that's how I look at it. It's having
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. I don't know who said it, but it was something along the lines, a knowledgeable person is someone who recognizes that doesn't know it all.
I certainly do not know it all. But you have to be open. And not all people are like that. Not all people are open.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
You're so creative and you're doing so many things. Do you feel that you might be connected to a higher purpose, higher power? Do you ever feel that?
My purpose is to have inner peace. That is it. That's my purpose. If I don't do that, and if I don't navigate life the way that I need to, I won't have that. And and having that essential to everything that I do in my life. I There probably is not a better way to explain that. And especially as I'm getting older and I've just retired, I want to do the things that make me happy. And I guess if I have to talk about one thing that is frustrating to me, I guess it's in a good way, is that I'm so much of a people person, and I'm so much of a people pleaser. I want to be everything to everyone. And realistically, I can't do that. I can't be everything to everyone. So I try to divide my time up in a way where I don't feel like I'm cutting myself short. And that's really the best that we can do.
That's true. Any questions for a middle school counselor?
No, I wanted to say that during when my mom was away and other hard times in my life, I was in school, and my counselors just had such an impact on me. And as my mom was saying earlier, I think it's really a divine job, and you guys are really like saints, and I really respect it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. A couple of things that I will speak to that. So that when I've had students in my office, it was important to me to make sure that my door was closed. And a lot of times I would have a do not disturb sign on there. My cell phone was never on, and I didn't take calls, because I feel there's nothing more upsetting to a student than sitting and sharing what's going on in their lives and not being 100% present. It's all about that. You have to be 100% present. to your students, because answering a phone, having people walk in on you means you're not that important. And I'll tell you, it's crazy in a counseling office because people are constantly walking in, you're constantly interrupted. There are times that I would take a student to an empty classroom because I knew I couldn't be found there. And I would be able to have my 20 or 30 minutes uninterrupted. It's very different when you're not working from home and you're working in a school setting. You really have to be able to manage that and make the person who is in front of you feel that you're 100% attentive. And if you're not
Yeah.
doing that, you're not doing the job.
Yeah. It's definitely listening to people, and especially kids, because as parents we all believe that we know what's best for our
Mm-hmm.
kids, and sometimes going to school with the mindset from home, having somebody truly listening to them, it's a great gift for a child.
And it isn't so much giving advice. I'd have to say that the counseling is not about giving people advice. It's about asking a person the right questions, and their answers bring them to a conclusion because they have to buy into it. Sometimes it's just asking a question that gets them to where they need to be. It's not spewing advice. And
Yeah.
I use it in my everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah, same like coaching. People know, they already know what they need to do. It's not our job to tell them what to do, but to guide them to get to whatever they know already.
But some people are not ready for that. You can bring somebody, I know you know this, that you can bring somebody to a certain point and they're not ready or they're not willing to go to that next step. And you can't push people to do that. You really have to meet them where they're at. And it's okay. It's okay if somebody is stuck at a certain point, but you have to meet them at that point, because if you start pushing yourself on them, they become very resentful. You have to meet them where they are every time.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and now that we're approaching the end, there is the one question that I ask every guest. What is one activity in your life that makes you feel more alive?
So well, there are three things. So the first one is I have 4 generations of family that are unfolding. Both my children, Samantha and Dean, they're married, they're in very grounded relationships, and I am a part of that journey with them. That's one thing. Obviously, the birth of Sadie, my granddaughter, is my daughter and son-in-law's child, and watching my parents at their age try to be a part of shaping her and being with her. I can't even tell you what it is like to watch my parents with a great grandchild. The other thing would be I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of close circles of friends, and I work very I work very hard to make sure that I have a close connection with them, because connections to people for me is what it's all about. Even if there is a bump in the road, even if we have to be able to resolve a conflict, my close connections, it's everything to me. And I know that a lot of my friends they do get a lot of pleasure from being in my presence. And I know, and they tell me that, and that makes me so happy that I can be that person for them. And then lastly is, and these are not in any particular order because I'm, I feel equal about everything. Obviously is the writing. The writing is a catharsis for me. And especially as a woman, and a writer, that writing only depends on me. It's mine. I own it. And it's just such an incredible sense of freedom to be able to express myself and have it out there, whether it's in a song or it's in a novel. It's an incredible sense of freedom as a woman to be able to have accomplished that. It really is all of those things.
That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I cannot wait to read your book. I will link in the description the songs that you wrote the lyrics for, so listeners will enjoy as well.
I could send that to you. I can send you, if that helps, I can send you the names of the songs. And if they want to look it up on YouTube or get it on Spotify, they can listen to it. I can send that to you now.
That's great.
I thank you so much. You don't know how pleased I am that you asked me to do this. This was very kind of you. And I don't know when you're coming back from Romania, but I'm probably going to see you very soon at an event.
Definitely, we'll see each other at the summit.
See you at the summit. Absolutely. Share a table.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
And Alexis, so nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Same.
All right. So, our listeners, thank you for listening. For more guests and conversations, please subscribe and follow. We'll see you next week.